first I'd like to say that no animals have been harmed in the making of this interview. Well, it's going to be pretty cliched, but when I was about 12 years old, I looked around my room and I had all these books of clipped newspapers. This is back before you could do a clipping off the computer screen. And they were all space. I remember one was, Mars, we landed on Mars. There's all the other space programs that were going on. And that's the point. It's like, well, I think this is what I want to do. And so that's what got me in the direction initially. I was going to go into Air Force ROTC my freshman year at school. I saw what they were doing and how idiotic it was and decided that wasn't for me, but I kept going aerospace engineering. Astronauts typically have an aerospace engineering background, and that's the direction I went. What's really fun is if you're working on rocket engines, they're a continuous explosion. So it's kind of exciting and kind of cool, and you have just a lot of different things that have to go into it, or you get a lot of little pieces coming out of it. So that's sort of what enticed me to that area. There's aeronautical engineering, astronautical engineering, which is what I went into. There's different specializations in that, and I just always gravitated toward things that could blow up, rockets. So, and not only that, but when you start getting into fluid systems, fluids for aerospace, you can have a whole bunch of different things. So I've done fluid systems for hydrogen and oxygen, fuel cell systems, and we also did a gasoline flamethrower to test basically a way to test the system for putting out fires inside of armored vehicles. But in order to do that, you need to simulate an armored vehicle getting hit by a round going through the fuel tank. And so in that case, you had a gasoline air explosion. That was a lot of fun to put together. So that's what all sort of got me in that direction. And I kept going in that direction because it seemed just a lot more interesting than other drier things like, weight balance or mass properties or aerodynamics. They didn't have the allure for me. Yeah, I don't think I actually ever put the application in. It just never seemed like I would really have the qualifications for it. I don't have the eyes. I don't have 20/20 vision. Back in the day, you sort of needed that. And I never, it's one of those things I've just never applied for it. It's a fairly long process to go through, and you need to have a PhD or you need to have a test pilot training certificate. There's a whole bunch of things that can help get you there, and I never really quite had those things. So I was staying on the ground. But if somebody said, do you want to be an astronaut, or if there's a way to buy a cheap ticket to space, I'm probably going to be doing that. The past of space really started politically. You had, the whole race to the moon, etc. And what that meant is that, national goals were very aligned with, gee, we've got to get to space. Then the Soviet Union collapsed, you no longer have that impetus, and why should we go to space? What is the reason? Right now, there isn't a really compelling reason. Sure, we'll go to space. Okay, NASA will take us to a faraway point, but they're not telling us what we're going to do there yet. We'll figure that out later after we build all the rockets. And that's realistically, if you're spending a couple $100 billion to develop something, you want to have a real reason. And right now, nationally, we don't have it. Commercially, we do. We've got Virgin Galactic starting up, and they will be flying people into space for $250,000 a piece. They've got a huge backlog, 500 people or something. There's a huge interest just based on the fact, like how I grew up. Everyone wants to go to space. That'd be really cool. Well, a bunch of people who want to go to space, when they grew up, they got rich, and now they can go, and they're willing to pay someone to do that. If you're an early adopter to any technology, you're the first one in the door, you're the first one to do something that costs a lot more. Well, there are early adopters. They're the ones who are going to prove out all of Virgin Galactic's processes, make sure that people know, hey, we can go to space, it's just another place. By the time Virgin gets done, they'll probably have orbital space flights, and it won't really mean too much anymore, any more than you can get on a plane and go to Miami. Big deal. 100 years ago, that was a big deal. So where we're going in space, it's going to start out with the commercial that we have now, Virgin Galactic. They're going to get us going, and that's going to help other companies that are going to be taking tourists there. We're going to have maybe countries that can't afford their own space program. They'll be buying spaces in space from a company called Bigelow Aerospace, and none of this stuff's a pipe dream. Sir Richard Branson has a couple hundred. He probably can put a few $1 billion into his program, a couple $100 million. So that's going to happen. Bigelow Aerospace, who's going to start flying, they have something called BEAM, B-E-A-M, and I forget what the acronym stands for. Space is full of acronyms for some reason. But they're going to be flying to the space station. And when I say flying, they actually have NASA's permission to dock one of their modules onto the space station, and it'll be monitored as a big experiment. Essentially, it's an inflatable module. Now, once that's qualified by NASA, well, NASA can buy more of them, but also that same design, you could have Japan buying one. They don't want to do their whole space program, develop a whole space station, but we'll buy one from someone. Or Indonesia, India, Pakistan, any other countries, like, you want a space station. All of a sudden, we've got all these people, all these different countries up in space. It's easy to get to now. The costs start coming down because we're doing it every day. Just like driving, it used to be really expensive to drive somewhere, and now it doesn't really mean anything if you go somewhere. So that'll start getting our costs down. Companies like Planetary Resources, who are going to be mining asteroids, they're going to find it really easy to go out, grab some material from an asteroid, bring it back. Oh, by the way, now we have all this material we can build things with. And if you don't already know, it's like $20,000 for a liter of water if you want to take it up from the Earth. So if you are mining in space, you're starting out with your material being worth that much just per pound of anything, let alone if you start mining asteroids for platinum, gold, where they're much more highly concentrated than they are on Earth. If you exploit something, then you're looking at a plus and a downside. If you exploit coal fields, so you have a huge coal field, it used to be a forest, now it's a big hole in the ground, and you've got all this coal that's shipped out somewhere else, and it's a negative. You've exploited it. It's a negative connotation of that word. But guess what? It's an asteroid. No one's using it. There isn't anybody living there. If you haul an asteroid from point A to point B, no one's going to miss it, and it doesn't really matter. So the reason, there's a couple of downsides for mining space, and that is you can change the value of things here on Earth. If you were to come back with a couple of tons of platinum, all of a sudden the platinum values fall here. Well, boo-hoo, things change. How much has gold changed in the last 5 years? One of the stories that Chris Lewicki of Planetary Resources tells is aluminum. When Napoleon was entertaining royalty, he had a very special set of plates. For regular visitors, they had, very, very nice china. But for special visitors, he had aluminum plates. Very, very rare. No one could get hold of it. Didn't know how to process it back then. Now aluminum is everywhere. Maybe it'll be like platinum in a few years. So if you're thinking of buying precious metals, this might give you pause. But if you're looking to help move out from Earth, this is what's going to happen. I think a lot of people have on their bucket list, I'd like to write a novel someday. And there's a lot of things going on with me that I thought might possibly amuse other people. There's, I think, things in everybody's life where you think, this is just my life. It's sort of dull because you see it every day. I remember my dad saying that. It's like, no one would want to read about my life. And there's a lot of interesting twists in his life, but for him it was sort of like water. You don't really see it. You see right through it. So when I wanted to write the book, I was like, well, there's a lot of stuff going on, and I'll put it down on paper, and I'll see what happens. And so that was sort of the impetus. Yes, the second one. It was predetermined to an extent just because it's loosely based on some work that I did for an aerospace company in Texas. And a lot of the ideas came from that. I happened to be in the National Guard unit in Texas also. And then there are all other general things about aerospace. You know, there's always a conflict of how much you record and how careful you are versus how fast you go, and how much you don't record, because recording takes time. So it's a development versus quality thing. Neither one really can ever win completely, because then it would shut down anything coming out worthwhile. And I see rocket religion as capturing a part of engineering. So it is a developmental part of engineering. So you have all putting together things and figuring out what you're going to do, and you're going to fly, how you're going to do it. A next phase of engineering is actually doing test. So there is test in there, but it's not actual flight test. You're testing, and the end of the book, well, I won't give it away, but the end of the book involves a test of the entire version, the entire rocket. The next book I wrote, which is unpublished, is all about flight ops, and that's comprehensive testing. And that's not even the rockets, that's with a solar-powered aircraft. And then the third book that I am working on concerns operations. So all of these things, it's just like you could say, well, you're just dusting for fingerprints and you're picking up some blood at the crime scene. That's pretty dull. But there's an entire genre of literature, of culture, media, or whatever you want to call it, that's based on that. And people who maintain aircraft, those are the guys who maybe save your lives every day. Maybe someone made a mistake and they catch it, and that means the plane doesn't fall out of the sky. It could be that it sounds to me like there's a lot of drama there that's being missed. So I think these things come in waves. It used to be sailors were terribly exciting, and there are all these books about them, Moby Dick and everything, and now really not so much. I mean, the Tom Hanks movie that came out recently is an exception. So I think it's just a cycle of the genres, and I think engineering is more than due to be in there for a little while. Oh boy, maybe Ed Norton. Moving people into space. My first novel, like a lot of first novels, is sort of a need to put out who I am. And to a great extent, I am the protagonist in the book, or a portion of him is me. One thing I had heard that makes a lot of sense is that if you write a first novel, it's just like if you're turning on the pipes after a long hiatus, the water runs rusty, and you have to leave it on for a while for the water to clear. So the first book is sort of my rusty pipes. It's more me coming out, and later works that I've done, which are not yet published, are a little more just isolated characters that I was having fun with. But there's an awful lot of me in Rocket Religion. I never experienced writer's block per se, because I don't believe in it, but because anyone can write. If you say you're blocked, it's like just write do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then seg that into something. Just keep writing. Why not? Because that's how you get your string of consciousness going. Because it's going to just get you going. And then eventually you may find out that one of your main characters, when he was growing up, had his mother sing that to him, and she didn't sing very well, and maybe it was the only song that she knew, but she knew it would comfort him. Just start like that and work toward it. The broader story, what I was trying to capture, is that, and I'll look at another example, law. Law 100 years ago there really weren't too many novels about law. It's terribly dull. Or law enforcement. All the shows are about that now. How many movies can you think of that are about the engineering process? Just like CSI is about, the whole crime scene investigating, and other things about law enforcement process. How many movies can you think of that are about the engineering process? I can only think of a few. Brainstorm, October Sky, Apollo 13 nominally, but that's more about operations. The thing is that You know, the computer you're working on now, the camera I'm talking to, all the light bulbs that we were talking about before, they're all engineers do them all. You know, they're the ones who are going to start the process and get that going. So they are completely absent from our current cultural society. I've had problems with math myself too. I like to think of math like a toilet. Use it, but don't talk about it. And there are always things in the way of what you want to do. And in my case, when I had problems with math, you know, it's like, okay, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Although there are people who do. You talk to them. They're called classmates. They're called tutors. They're called teachers. What the main thing is that most people simply aren't motivated to want to do math because they're here and they don't really see the connection of math to there. And for me, it's a tool. You know, I have a computer. I don't know how to build a computer. I don't even want to know how to program the computer. I just want to actually use the computer to do pictures or do anything else that I want to do. The most satisfying thing is you get something that's either on the desk or on a wall or is being driven around. It's like you help put that together. Someone, if you're a car engineer, it's like people would not be getting to work if it wasn't for you. If you're doing safety systems, people would be dead if it wasn't for you. You know, if you're working on tires even, you know, it's like maybe you figured out a new tire compound that's saving a couple 100,000 pounds of rubber every year because it doesn't wear as fast. You know, that's what you get to invent, that's what you get to do. But it is a long process. It does require some patience. I have two favorite books I've read, and I call them that simply because they're the only books that I've picked up and then read and then put down. So the first one is The Old Man and the Sea, Hemingway, and the second is The Forever War by Joe Haldeman, which is a science fiction. It's a typical analogy to the Vietnam War, but also it has a lot of good science fiction elements. Which one do I wish I'd written? Either one of them. The Old Man and the Sea is just so compelling and so simple and so straightforward. And The Forever War has all these really great details of life in space that you almost have to go there to pick up. It's so believable. The ability to see things in new ways. When you're doing engineering, you're creating something new. If you're doing development. And for photography, a picture is only good if it's new. No one, you know, what I like to say, if you have a quart of milk and someone wants another quart of milk, it's worth what that other quart of milk was. If I have a picture of you and I create another picture that's identical, it has zero value. It has to be new. It has to be different. It has to show you in different ways, or it's pointless. And photography, more than any other field that I've been in, forces you to do that. So for me, I like opening people's eyes. And when I teach classes, it's a lot of fun to see through other people's eyes and see what pictures they come up with for assignments that I make. It's like, oh, you did that. That's really cool. I wish I had thought of that. But that's what I like to do. That's what I like about it.